Steel Curtain Network.
¡Pique the Pickens! ¡Pique the Pickens! ¡Pique the Pickens!
All right, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome back to another episode of the Steelers Postgame Show right here on the Steel Curtain Network. It's Jeff Hartman, one of the three hosts. Joining me as always, Dave Schofield. What's up, Dave?
Oh, Jeff, you know what's up. This is just blah.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. That's a good way to put it. What about you, Bryan? Go ahead. Bryan.
Yeah, I had a little bit of time there where I fell asleep at the end of the second half, the first half, and then I was woken back up, and yeah, it sucked again.
It was pretty bad all around, if you ask me. It was one of those situations where nothing seemed to go right, but we're going to start this off like we always do, and that's with knee-jerk reactions. So, Dave, why don't you give us that right now? What's your knee-jerk reaction?
This is on everybody. You can complain about the coaches all you want. You should. But you don't give the players a pass either. It was 100% up and down, top to bottom. No one was really there and ready to go and ready to do what they needed to do. This was just a punch in the face.
Bryan, Dave, what's your knee-jerk reaction?
Yeah, everybody that's thrown out the fire Canada, I'm not going to disagree with you, but might as well fire Austin too. I mean, if you guys are going to go, you just want to keep your regular scapegoat. There's more than one scapegoat in this game. I'm not giving anybody a pass either, like Dave, but man, don't fall back on that same thing. If you're going to go for it, go for it.
Knee-jerk reaction for me is simply put, it was just complete domination. And I can say from the opening whistle, I mean, think about it. The first drive, they just moved down the field. And I honestly was thinking to myself, this doesn't feel good. Like,
Nope.
not from just giving up points, but just from the way the game was trending. Like right away, it just felt like things were going to be bad. And that came to fruition, unfortunately, as the Steelers lose 30-6. I wrote up the game post-game article, and I even put this out on my Twitter when I put out the link and said the score, it wasn't even this close. It was complete dominance in every single phase of the game. All right, we've got some people chiming in with super chats. We'll get those on the screen here now. Let's go to SealDog88. He says, outcoached, outclassed, outplayed, period. Hope Kenny and Pat Freiermuth are okay. He's alluding to the fact that Kenny Pickett left with a knee injury. So did Dan Moore Jr. Marvin Leal, I couldn't make out what Coach Tomlin said was the injury there.
It was announced that he had a concussion.
Okay, very good.
On
So
Twitter or X or whatever it's called is where I saw that. Yeah.
So DeMarvin Leal's out with a head injury, and Pat Freiermuth was almost ruled out immediately with a hamstring. That normally doesn't end well. Let's get to Kyle Smith. Gave us $5. Didn't know Chase Claypool was still on the team. Has number 14 made a contested catch all season? Canada needs to go. Even the interception play was a repeated play call. So, yeah, he's talking about the interception that was targeted to Calvin Austin III. That was the same play they connected on for, I think, 72 yards against the Raiders on Sunday Night Football. I'm sure we're going to talk a lot about Matt Canada and the play calling throughout this game, or about the show, and on George Pickens. Last one here. Brandon Keene gives us $1.99. Thank you very much. He said, no defense can be on the field that often and be elite. Time of possession was definitely skewed in one way, that's for sure. Oh, one more. Here we go. Let's get DQ Strong, $4.99. Last week wasn't a Canada alone coordinated offense. This week was. This looked like the first 2 weeks, not last week. Well, how do we know that last week wasn't a Canada alone coordinated offense and this week was? Like, I don't understand that line of thinking. Did I miss a report or something? I don't think I did, but
no, it's when it looks bad, it's Matt Canada. When it doesn't look bad, it I don't know. But according to our own Daniel J., who was at the game, he said it looked like Mike Sullivan was actually the one calling plays in the second half. Take that for what it's worth.
Yeah. I do want to talk real quick before we get into the minutia of this game about the injuries. We don't know much unless there's a report coming out on Twitter at some point during the show. All we know is that Mike Tomlin said they need to be further evaluated. I know Mason Cole, when he was speaking with the media, said that he did talk to Kenny. So I don't know what people want to draw conclusions like, oh, well, he's not, taken to the hospital or whatever. It doesn't mean anything. If he tore his ACL, he still has to fly back with the team. Like, he's not going to be going anywhere. So we won't know anything on those injuries anytime soon. Most of the time, if it's a significant injury, though, you'll know by the end of the day. So we'll keep you in the loop if we can. Check out steelcurtainnetwork.com. It's a good time to plug that in case something happens. Okay, let's talk about this from top to bottom, starting with the offensive side of the football. Mainly one, Kenny Pickett, which we always start with a quarterback, and that's where we're starting. Kenny Pickett finished his 15 of 23 for 114 yards, a 5-yard average, no touchdowns, did throw that one interception, was sacked 3 times, and the Houston Texans ended with 6 quarterback hits on the game with a rating of 59.0. Mitch Trubisky came in relief, 3 for 5, 18 yards, 3.6 average, no interceptions, no touchdowns, no sacks, 67.1 rating. Dave, what did you think about Kenny Pickett?
Yeah, it just wasn't going. I mean, some of the stuff was kind of questionable. You know, the easy thing, the low-hanging fruit is the potential touchdown where Connor Hayward was open on the second level when they kind of have the blown coverage and he didn't hit him. It definitely was not like it was last week, but just not – I don't know if you should call it JV or not at this point, but it just wasn't enough to get the job done.
Bryan, what did you think about Kenny Pickett?
Wasn't good enough. Wasn't good at all. You know, we could come out and say, well, we didn't have time. The play calling wasn't good. Kenny was not good today. I hope it's not true colors shining through. But right now, the number one thing is worrying about his injury and him getting back. But did not play well enough at all to make that help that team win.
Kenny Pickett was awful today, but I can't say that I necessarily blame him, so to speak, for he doesn't trust anything. You know, he doesn't trust the line in front of him. Like, there's a hint of pressure. He's trying to bail early. We know that was a knock on him throughout his time at Pitt, where he was always making plays outside the pocket, which you just can't make a living like that in the NFL. And I get it where people are frustrated with the play calling, but at some point your quarterback's got to go out and make those plays. And when the plays are presented, they got to make them. He did not play well today. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And Tyler W. gives us $5. I'll bring this up because it's related. Said, I've waited 17 games for Pickett to take over a game, and it hasn't happened. Stroud just did it in his 4th game. Above all, that's what I'm thinking about. Yeah. And then you watch, you even watch the Washington Commanders and Sam Howell, who was able to bring the Commanders back on a game-winning drive and send it to overtime. They end up losing, but still, same draft class. And you're wondering, like, what is off here? I know a lot of people are going to point to the same person. It's not Kenny Pickett, mind you, but still, Kenny Pickett was bad. Let's go here with Oral Richards. Give us a super sticker for $10. I don't know what that sticker was. Dave, can you see that on your phone?
I'm trying to find it now.
Okay. Well, we appreciate the tip. We appreciate the tip either way. Thank you very much. Any other thoughts about Kenny Pickett or the quarterback position, Dave or Bryan, or are we moving on already?
It's funny. You say he doesn't trust the line and stuff in front of him. I don't know that he trusts the voice coming through the headphones either.
It's a good segue. Yeah. Let's talk about the offensive line first. So the offensive line, in terms of opening up holes for the running game, the Steelers as a team rushed for 114 yards, 4.6 yards per carry. Najee Harris was 71 total yards, a 5.1 average. He had a 23-yard long. He's running the ball hard. You got to give him credit. But again, in pass protection, the Steelers struggled. The 3 sacks. Pickett was just constantly trying to evade the pass rush. What did you think about the offensive line, Dave?
Yeah, I thought this was a game where they could come out and really try to take over the game, and I don't think they did at all. I don't think people really want to say it, but because the call was so bad on that 4th and 1, but so was the blocking. A lot of times people say, "Oh, well, just put your rookies out there and see what they can do." Well, I don't think the Steelers wanted to put Broderick Jones out there in that situation, and it was his guy that hit Pickett. I'm not ready to say it's all on him. I tried to go back. I can't rewind the game with stupid Sunday ticket. So I couldn't find another shot to see what his block looked like on that play. So maybe someone will help me with that. But all in all, I didn't think the line got it done. I mean, my goodness, the one time, I don't know that it was completely on Mason Cole when he ran into Najee Harris in the backfield. It could have been that was a combo block, and Herbig wasn't – something didn't go right there either. A couple of times Najee Harris bounced off of Darnell Washington. Just the blocking in all was not what it needed to be in order for the Steelers to be successful.
Yeah, Bryan, go ahead.
You're limited when you have a line that has not been fantastic and you lose James Daniels from the get-go, and then Daniel Moore Jr. goes down. And when that happens, you're bringing in Broderick Jones. Is he ready for prime time? No, not yet. He's not ready for prime time. Is he ever going to be ready for prime time? Let's hope. Let's hope there's growing pains. And that's all you need to say. And this is a talent issue on the offensive line. And that's all it is. So we're going to start seeing all these calls for Munchak. Mike Munchak cannot fix this talent on this line. So stop it.
I mean, think about the statement that you make when you're talking about a team and an organization that said they were going to come out and completely kind of revamp the offensive line the last 2 years. And for us to say that it's completely ready to happen again. When you think about, you give Chooks a core for the big time deal, you hope that a 4th round pick and Dan Moore can hold up at left tackle. You take a 1st round pick, put it at left tackle. You go out and sign James Daniels, Mason Cole. You get Isaac Seumalo this past offseason. I mean, what does that say about some of the moves that have been made the last 2 years along the offensive line? If now, after 4 games, we're saying this group's just not good enough, it's just not good enough. I understand, and I agree they're not good enough. But at the same time, this bleeds well beyond this one game. This bleeds well beyond just this one poor performance. I don't think that, last year, the Steelers got unbelievably fortunate with all 5 of their starting linemen playing every single game. They got unbelievably fortunate. And then on top of all that, maybe you could say it was the weaker second half of the schedule. I don't know, but it seems like they just said this group's good enough. And clearly I question that. I question whether this group is good enough. And, everyone's going to have an opinion as to whether it's the scheme, whether it's the play call or whatever. They're just not getting the job done. At some point, it comes down to you got to go out and get the job done. Dave, were you going to say something?
Yeah, you brought up the one thing of this. It should not be so delicate that having to play one different player as a starter right from the beginning is a problem. Yes, all the offensive line needed time to gel last year. Look at them. But you're not going to get the same guys all the time. And if that's what it absolutely has to be, that'll never work for one. 2, look at the patchwork offensive line that they went against and got. They're not on the field at the same time going head to head against each other, but that offensive line completely outplayed them today. That's what's embarrassing.
Yeah. Bryan, any other thoughts?
Yeah, I've got a lot of thoughts. And I'm going to say this right here. We are blaming everybody here.
Yeah.
We're not just blaming the offensive line in this segment. We just blamed the quarterback. We've already blamed the coaching. As a whole, horrible game.
Yeah.
So, that's all I'm saying. It's time for me to turn off the live chat and focus on you two.
Well, we got to talk about the pass catchers and the running backs as well. We're just going to lump them all together because it's a big bag of nothingness. Let's talk about the receiving core, which somehow, some way was led by Najee Harris's 1 catch for 32 yards. Jaylen Warren ends up with 6 catches for 26. George Pickens, 3 for 25. Calvin Austin, 3 for 24. Darnell Washington, 1 for 10. And then Allen Robinson and Pat Freiermuth. I'm about to go off on Pat Freiermuth, not right now, though, but 3 for 7 on 4 targets. And then the rushing.
With a long of 9.
What's that? Oh, yeah.
7 yards with a long of 9.
It's a great point. I totally overlooked that. And then rushing, Najee for 71, Jaylen Warren for 29, Kenny Pickett for 9, Calvin Austin 1 for 5. Najee was averaging 5.1. So not a bad average for him and not a bad game for him, to be honest. What are your final thoughts about the offense here before we get to some of these super chats, guys? Dave, we'll start with you.
The run game started to get going to start the second half, where the Steelers still had an opportunity to do something. And they actually did put themselves in a situation where they could have sparked something. They got the field goal. They got the 3 and out. They were running the ball well. It was almost too little, too late almost, and it ended up being too little, too late. I said it after the last game when you sometimes you look at the yards, and this is with the Steelers or even their opponents, sometimes you get more yards when you're getting rushing when it doesn't really matter. Najee Harris started really running the ball and doing it there in the third quarter at a point to try to spark something with this Steelers team. And that's why it was their best rushing out game of the season, just because of that. But it's not enough to carry everything, especially when you dig yourself in a hole that bad coming into the third quarter was the bigger problem. The passing game was just so disappointing all around.
Yeah. Bryan, what are your thoughts?
I loved what Najee Harris was doing as far as heart and effort, and he was doing it in some places without a lot of help. And for everybody that's been calling for Jaylen Warren, there's probably a reason too, because he could not hold on to the ball twice. And I'm going to tell you, I realize he only had one fumble credited to him. He had no turnovers because Kenny Pickett did bail him out on one. The other one, his knee just got down, but he still didn't hold on to that football, regardless of being down or not.
This is a situation where, sometimes you say, well, the receivers still did their job, or the running game. Najee Harris was like the only glimmer of, I think, positivity from the offensive side of the ball. Yeah. I can't think of anyone else. George Pickens wasn't coming down with contested catches. Calvin Austin made a nice catch, but at the same time, the deep ball, you hope that he can somehow try and knock it away. That's a tough play. I'm not going to.
Yeah, that ball wasn't thrown well.
He was open.
He actually was open.
Yeah. I will say this, that tomorrow on Let's Ride, I am going to talk a lot about Pat Freiermuth in a not very glowing fashion. The dude looks like he doesn't want to be there. The dude looks like he wants nothing to do with blocking. He wants nothing. He probably is unbelievably disheartened by the way that the offensive scheme is looking and how he's not being utilized the way that he was probably hoping. He looks like he is absolutely just done. And I've noticed it. I've noticed it the past few weeks, haven't said anything. And yes, he leaves with injury, but still just rough, just a rough outing all together. All right, let's go with some super chats here, because I know they're going to get into what everyone wants to talk about today. But before we do that, let's get Afton. She gave us $2 to Afton for it. Thank you very much. He said, what do you think about Brojo, improvement or not? That's Broderick Jones. Dave, what were your thoughts?
I would say specifically right now, I wouldn't say it's an improvement, but there is the potential. There's a much higher ceiling for him to come if this is what you're going to do. I don't expect it right now, but if he needs to be the guy going forward, I didn't think it was. Let's just say this: he didn't stand out as a bad player on a good offensive line. That obviously didn't happen. Right. So there is a much higher ceiling potential for him now. I just don't know that he was there yet.
Bryan, what are your thoughts on the rookie left tackle?
I don't think there's enough of a sample size yet, but I don't think he was terrible. I don't think he was fantastic. I thought he was there. I do like the nickname though, Brojo.
I will say this. I saw him make plenty of mistakes. I didn't see him do anything that I would say, man, Dan Moore would be so much better. So if that's the case, and you're getting pretty much the same level of play, let's get the rookie some repetitions. Let's get him some experience. Let's hope he can improve as he goes, as long as it's not going to hurt him from a developmental standpoint. Get him out there. That's my theory. Let's go to John Anna here. Gives us $9.99. Thank you for the tip. Offense is too simple. Doesn't put edge defenders in conflict, doesn't challenge eye discipline of linebackers, doesn't stretch the defense. Kenny never checks out of a play or adjusts pass protection. It's interesting. Kenny doesn't do that a lot. He did it once, I know, today, but not a lot. Those are good points, John. Thank you for the tip. Dave, what do you think?
Yes. Honestly, when you talk about your week of prep, think about this from an opponent standpoint. How difficult is it for a defense to prepare against the Steelers offense?
It's gotta be pretty.
It's really not. It's really not all that difficult. That summed it up very well right there. Thank you.
Bryan, anything to add?
The commentators were even talking about the Steelers offense and how predictable it is.
Yeah. I mean, even when it's not predictable, it's awful. Like who would go 4th and 1? Let's get in the shotgun and not run it up the middle, or at least try. But hey, they tried that too and failed earlier. So it is what it is, I guess. Kyle Smith gives us $5. Says Trubisky immediately came out and threw the worst throw of the entire season, by the way. That sideline throw had 0% chance for everyone calling for Trubisky. I have not seen.
I don't think that was the worst throw of the season, but it wasn't good.
Let's see here. Let's go with Crystal Privet. She gives us $2 and says Steelers should get Gentry off the Bengals practice squad. It depends on the severity of the injury, but they have a tight end on our practice squad?
Yeah, they have Rodney Williams. Now, if they want to keep Rodney Williams and have Gentry, you would have to sign Gentry. You would have to do it for the 53 from someone else's practice squad. So that's not a crazy notion depending on the injury, especially if an injured reserve stint is coming.
Yeah. All right, let's get to Evgeny Crosby gives us $5. Says, I'm sorry we let this clown destroy Ben Roethlisberger's last season, and now he's destroying Kenny Pickett. This is beyond embarrassing. At some point, you do have to talk about Matt Canada and say, is he capable? And I will say this. I had a conversation with Kevin Smith, who does a show with Bryan, and he does a show with me on the NFL side of Fans First Sports Network. And this was not on the air. And he said, I'm concerned that Matt Canada is not going to be able to develop Kenny Pickett, that eventually it could actually ruin him. I'm kind of seeing that come to fruition, unfortunately. Let's get Andrew Palladino, gives us $10. Thank you, Andrew. He said the Steelers' opponents have collectively put up 100 points through 4 games as opposed to the Steelers' 62. The offense is averaging 15 points per game. Year 3 of the Twilight Zone, fellas. This was the year I'm sad. It does seem like the Twilight Zone. Except now they're not talking about Ben Roethlisberger only throwing the ball 5 yards down the field. They're at least trying deep throws, just not successful. Let's go to DQ Strong. This is $4.99. Can't make judgments on players when coaching is so bad. The 4th and 1 call was that bad. The play call eliminated any guessing by the defense.
Yeah.
Yes.
You knew you took one possible element away from it. I put this tweet out there about the 4th and 1 play call. I'm like, Mike Tomlin took a timeout in that moment on that 4th and 1. So they had time to call the play. If I'm Mike Tomlin and I have my headphones on and I hear that play calling, I'm immediately calling to run Chris Boswell out onto the field and go for the 51-yard field goal, because you had a better chance with that than you did on the play that they called.
Did you hear his excuse? Tomlin's?
Oh, yeah. Well, no. Tomlin did what Tomlin does. When he doesn't want to answer the question, he answers a different part of what was said rather than the actual question that was asked. He answered why he called a timeout, not did he approve that play. The question was, did he approve that play? And he gave an explanation as to why he called a timeout in that situation.
See, the way I heard it was that he said that they gave him a spot that was different than what they thought, which, yes, that answers your question, and that makes sense why he answered the way he did.
Yeah, because at the end he said, that's why I called the timeout. We know, Coach, we're not blaming you for calling the timeout. We're blaming you for the terrible play call, and you didn't want to answer that part of the question.
That he has to approve, by the way. He has to approve that play call as a head coach. Oh. You don't just let that run. Okay, Oral Richards gives us $5. Thank you very much. Said Kenny equals Daniel Jones, not a Super Bowl quarterback, a waste of hope. I'm sure you're not alone in that feeling today or recently, to be honest with you. Wilson Pava gives us $9.99. Said if Tomlin doesn't fire Canada, he needs to be on the hot seat himself. MC got KP8 killed today. Matt Canada, that is. The play calling is also hurting the offensive line and leading to a lot of 3-and-outs. That then hurts the defense. All right, I want to get through these before we talk about.
I was going to say one. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, we're good. Faceless Man gives us $9.99. Says 4th and 1 shotgun. Can anyone continue to make excuses for Canada's job? Worst offensive coordinator in the NFL. When we have successful plays, it's individual efforts despite the predictable scheme and poor play calling. Let's go to Crystal Privet again. Gives us $2. She says Najee the only one on the offense who seemed to give a damn, and you can't tell me otherwise. Gabriel Gassier Golden gives us $5. Watching this game was a joke. Their offensive line is a walking wounded, but we are even making Kendrick Green look like a Pro Bowler. It was rough to watch. That's for sure. Here we go. Dejan Davis. I hope I said that correctly. If not, I apologize. $4.99. The difference between coaching today was astronomical. The offense and defensive concepts have been abysmal this season. Hard to disagree. And Steel Dog 88 gives us $5. It's crazy to see the style of offense the Texans and run with a rookie quarterback and a rookie offensive coordinator, mind you, and succeed compared to the crap we get. All right, let's go to Jason Purdy. Last one here, $9.99. He says we need a Mike McDaniel type. Kenny reminds me of a Tua before McDaniel. He has potential, but needs a West Coast system. Kenny is good. He just needs an offensive coach, and start JPJ, please. Thank you for the tip. Everyone that donated money, we do appreciate it. Absolutely. All of you. Thank you very much. Before we take a break, let's talk about Matt Canada, and then let's leave it. Okay, so we're going to talk about Matt Canada, and then we're going to leave it behind. Dave, I'll let you go first.
Okay, well, when I said at the beginning that you can't put this all on the coaches, this is on everybody, that definitely did not mean that you should not blame the coaches and the scheme and everything else. Yes, I agree that you should. But another thing that people want to assume, who employs the coaches? Mike Tomlin is the head coach, but it ultimately comes from Mr. Rooney. And for all we know, we're like, Mike Tomlin has to fire Matt Canada. We don't even know if that's his decision to make. Somebody needs to do it. Whoever can make that decision needs to be allowed to make that decision, regardless of who it is. And if they're not letting that happen, someone here, there, the other place, shame on them. But my point when I brought up some of these other things was we just assume we know that that's how things are, but we don't really know exactly how that all plays out. But regardless, someone's got to be able to say, you know what, enough is enough.
You would hope, or else you're going to turn into the Pittsburgh Pirates, who just seem like they don't care if they lose all the time. Brian, what are your thoughts on Matt Canada?
Yeah, absolutely. Matt Canada needs to go, and that is absolute. I am not convinced that the coaching staff, I'm not convinced that Mike Tomlin does not want to keep him around. In fact, I don't think he wants to keep him around. I think everything Dave said, that's what I was ready to say. Mike Tomlin has a boss too. The Steelers ultimately have an owner problem right now, and that kills me to say, especially with the guys named Rooney. You've had so much excellence with the name Rooney. Art 2 is a problem, and that's exactly what it is. He does not want to fire people. We've been speculating all along. Look what he has done over the years. Wanted to get rid of Haley. Let's wait till his contract runs out. Wanted to get rid, everybody wanted the team to get rid of Randy Fichtner. He stayed way too long. And now Matt Canada, his contract ends at the end of the year, and it looks like we just have to deal with it because Art Rooney wants him around. And I'm going to tell you that I believe that to be true. I'm not kissing Mike Tomlin's butt here because I'm telling you, Mike Tomlin, you're right, fellas. He could have vetoed that stuff. He definitely could have.
And should have.
And he should have. And he's on my list too. Everybody's on my list except for maybe Najee Harris today. But Art Rooney, it's ultimately up to him. And that's what's going on here.
You're right. It goes all the way to the top. But here's the thing. Like someone on Twitter after the game, they said, oh, Jeff, like now's the time, right? Where we're going to start seeing some changes. And I said, in most organizations, yes. With the Steelers, no. I don't see anything happening. Can you anyone imagine Mike Tomlin on Tuesday going in front of the media saying Matt Canada has been stripped of his play calling duties? Anyone predict that happening?
Even if he did do it, he's not going to say it. He's not going to tell anyone.
No,
and that's
he's
the
not.
thing. It's funny because I don't know. Daniel. I said that about what Daniel J said. And I'm just saying there's a lot of different ways to look at it. I don't know that that's true at all. Please don't think that was. But I did notice that they didn't show Matt Canada holding up a paper in the booth in the second half at all. They showed him one time and he didn't have that. But my thing is, even if they did that, they're not going to announce it.
No, they're not going to announce it. And so they're going to eat this attention. They're going to eat it. And it just reeks. I mean, I'm not saying that firing a guy is going to be some crazy catalyst that's going to spur, get the.
No, I don't think it'll make it any better. I don't think it'll make it any better, but it's just so not good enough.
There comes a point where you have to be held. Like, where's the accountability?
Yeah.
If someone, and we used to always get this guy, Bryan remembers him, I'm sure. He was on the Blog Talk Radio days back when we would record on Blog Talk Radio on our old school Behind the Steel Curtain podcast. Vito Mankin from New Jersey was always the first caller of our show every single week. I mean, it was clockwork. He would be waiting in the studio before we even went live. And he would always say the same thing. Gentlemen, if you and I did this at our jobs, we would be fired. So tell me why, when these guys go out there and they're doing the same things repeatedly over and over and over again, why they aren't held to the same level of accountability. I mean, Bryan, you remember Vito, right?
Good evening, gentlemen.
That's exactly how you would say it.
Oh, gosh. I mean, I wanted him to be my ringtone. I mean, he was like, really, his voice was like almost like Morgan Freeman. He was so soothing. After a bad loss, there was Vito.
He would get pissed, and he was right. Like, where's the accountability? At some point, when you don't do your job, other teams have done it. Maybe it's time the Steelers get on board and say, you know what, we're making a change. And everyone's going to say the same thing. It should be over the bye week. Screw the bye week. I mean, look at what they're doing. I know they have a week 5 game against Baltimore and then the bye week in week 6. But if you're going to make a change, like, even if it's saying that Matt Canada is being let go, Mike Sullivan's going to call the plays, whoever, whatever. I'm not saying change just to change. You change because, well, accountability has to be a part of this equation. It has to be. All right. We talked a lot about the offense. We talked a lot about the offensive coordinator. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back from the break, we're going to probably get some more super chats going, and then we're going to talk about the defense. Stay tuned. All right, Steeler fans, we're back talking about the Steelers. Obviously, not good performance against the Houston Texans. Let's get some super chats here. Here we have from Christian Scotland Williams McCullers. I don't even know that name. Gives $4.99. Says, on a serious note, when will we be seeing Shiner Nutter Vanderbeek t-shirts? Maybe we at the Shiner Nutter 24 shirts, I think would be hysterical, but that would be like the thank you, Dave. You can get, hey, you're pissed off about Matt Canada. You want to show it. You can go to that website under you see at the bottom of the video. If you're listening in audio, it's scnstore.itemorder.com. That's scnstore.itemorder.com. You can get the Fire Canada shirts in gray, black, gold, whatever. Go get yours today. We're giving away Victory Monday shirts if they ever win a Steelers game. If the Steelers ever win another game, we're going to give away a free shirt. So make sure you go check that out. Do y'all think that's too much of an inside joke to have the Shiner Nutter 2024?
I still want a touchdown zone shirt, but I'm just afraid we don't say it enough that it's too old of a reference.
I mean, that's with the OGs for sure. I'm up for any shirt design. Like I'll draw it up, I'll send it over, and we'll see if we can make it happen.
I haven't seen my bad language shirts come through.
What did I tell you? You got to get me a design, and I'll make it happen. You haven't done it, so that's on you, not me. Don't put it on me. All right,
I'll put it on you.
Wilson Pava gives us $1.99. Stability without accountability is mediocrity. I like that saying. Stability without accountability is mediocrity. Very good. And then DQ Strong gives us $4.99. Says, to me, this is less about the negative attention. This is more about losing your team. Najee's frustration is telling to me. He is very frustrated. It's very visible. And I don't know what the answer is necessarily. And Afton for it, gives us $2. Just got my first SCN merch. Cool stuff. Afton, hope you like it. Hope it's comfortable clothing. I know the shirts are, I really like the shirt. I think they're really nice. So hopefully you can vouch for that in the live chat as well. Dave, what do you want to say?
All right. Sometimes there can be something going on inside that can really affect everything else. And we just don't know it. And sometimes you just have to make something happen in order to get the team to come together. I don't know if it was something like this or not, but moving on from Chase Claypool last year seemed to have this team be better all around. Maybe it was just a problem from within or something like that. There's something going on here. You don't go down to Houston and play a game like that if there's not something else going on. Could it be an issue with Tomlin? Maybe. Could it be there's internal disbelief to such a high regard of Matt Canada that they can't get stuff done on, and it's just discouraging all around on both sides of the ball? Maybe. That's something that the fans can come up with. What it is, I don't know. But what the Steelers ultimately need to do is identify it and do something about it.
Yeah. I can't say anything against that. That's accurate. Let's go. I want to bring this on the screen before we go to the defensive side. Monster 19, longtime listener of the program, gives us $4.99. Said, ugly loss. Thanks for being there and helping us cope, guys. Sigh. Here we go. I got to say that this is as therapeutic for us as it is for you, the listener or viewer. I at least for me. Yeah, there are times like when we're getting ready to go live after a dud like this. I'm like, oh gosh, we got to talk about this game. But as we get going, it's very therapeutic. I find myself mentally working my way through things as we go. And that's the same for all of our other podcasts that we do. So let's talk about the defense. It surrendered 30 points to the Houston Texans. Start with CJ Stroud, 16 of 30, 306 yards, a 10.2 average, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Wasn't sacked once for a 111.2 rating, and the Steelers got quarterback hits, 6 quarterback hits. So they were able to get near him, but they were never able to bring him down. CJ Stroud, throws for 300 plus yards, and let's look at who were his leading pass catchers. Wow, Nico Collins. Jeez, I didn't realize this bad. 7 for 168. 2 touchdowns, a 52-yard long on 9 targets. That is Devontae Adams-esque from week 3.
It's one big receiver every week.
Yeah. Dalton Schultz, 3 for 42. Damian Pierce, 1 for 27. Robert Woods, 3 for 26. And then a bunch of others with 1. Is this about this? I hate being this simplistic. Is this about Levi Wallace? Is it whoever is guarding Levi Wallace is guarding is the guy that they are constantly targeting repeatedly? Brian, what do you think?
It almost has to be at this point. He gets 2 picks last week, but still surrenders a lot. And, the picks are great and the picks help you win games, but he's surrendering a lot more yards than he is picking off passes. So, yeah, I would say that he definitely is the problem here. Joey Porter Jr. is hardly getting any defensive snaps, or at least I'm not noticing them at all. In fact, at one point, I think I did see him out on the field walking off next to another player on the opposing team, and he looked like a man among boys as far as how tall he was coming through. But why is he not getting on the field? We talk about putting the rookies in and seeing what could happen, but we already saw glimpses of what could happen with Joey Porter Jr. And I think we're seeing a lot of devastation when Levi Wallace is in there 24/7, or at least every play, 60 minutes a game. At that point, you're like, maybe that's where you do bite the bullet and make a change. I think it is a Levi Wallace problem at this point. On the other side of the ball, Pat Peterson, who I have praised a whole heck of a lot, looked rusty today. This is the worst I've seen Pat Peterson play.
Dave, what do you think? Is it a Levi Wallace problem?
I don't know if it's completely a Levi Wallace as a player problem, or if it's how they are defensively scheming this and utilizing and the situations they're putting Levi Wallace in. I can't tell you. It's one of those two things. So I'm not ready to say it's one over the other, but bottom line is either they've got to do something more. Because I mean, on the very first play of the game, he makes a nice play, So it's not that Levi Wallace can't make plays. I don't think Levi Wallace is in their long-term plans beyond this year. I know they're trying to not put too much on JPJ, and that's why they're asking him to just focus on the responsibilities of dime, to not put too much on his plate. You know what they need to do this week? They need to put more on his plate. They need to put more on his plate. They need to get him out there a little bit more, and then after the bye week, have him, if nothing else, ready to go if you want to ease him in. But at this point, now you almost got to see if it's too much rather than worry about could it be too much, because here's an interesting question. Is it possible that they have Levi Wallace playing in a role specifically designed and schemed for what Joey Porter Jr. can do, but they're just having Levi Wallace hold it for now? That's not putting your player in the best situation.
No.
But I don't know enough about secondary stuff personally to be able to answer that. But that is a great question I would like to have for one KT Smith. He asks questions at his show of me, and then I send him answers. So, Coach, I would love to get an answer for this one, because it almost feels like they're taking – it's like they're looking beyond Levi Wallace to who's going to be in that spot, doing their defensive scheme that way, and then putting a player out there that's not necessarily who they are, and then he's destined to fail.
I guess they're seeing something in practice that is making them take a more reserved role and approach to Joey Porter Jr. And it has to be. But again, can it be much worse? It's like the same conversation with Broderick Jones and Dan Moore Jr. Well, if the play that you're getting on the field isn't going to be any worse, then why aren't you putting the younger player out there and letting them go through some of these growing pains rather than having them sit and do nothing?
Unless I don't know what missed the block, gets the quarterback knocked out of the game.
That too. So, what is
there's both sides to it.
Do you have the snap totals in front of you, Dave? Is that released yet?
No, they don't.
Okay.
That's
I
always
think
delayed.
It was right away. Yeah, I didn't know it was right away. Okay.
Yeah.
Just curious how many snaps Joey Porter Jr. played. Nonetheless, the one thing that was a constant, and I had a lot of people reaching out on Twitter saying, Jeff, like, what's going on with the defense? And Mike Tomlin said this over and over and over again in his post-game press conference, and that was, it was a running game issue, meaning they couldn't stop the run. And that was 100% fact. CJ Stroud's life was made so easy in this game when you're constantly facing 2nd and 4, 2nd and 3, 2nd and 6 sometimes. And then you're like, okay, we've got 2 plays. We're just going to keep running it because we're getting 3-4 yards a clip and we'll be fine. The rushing numbers for Houston don't look crazy. And I don't even think they really are indicative of how well they ran the ball. Dameon Pierce has 24 for 81. Devin Singletary, 7 for 25. Stroud ran 4 times for 16 yards. Tank Delph, 2 for 13. So they only rushed for 139. It's you're like, oh, 139 yards. It's not like a crazy 200-yard rushing game. It was the efficiency at which they did it. I mean, they couldn't stop the run to save their life, and then it was setting up these obvious and easy passing situations for the CJ Stroud and company. Just awful. Just really, really bad. Mike Tomlin pointed that out. They do miss Cam Hayward, but like I've said, like when TJ Watt goes out and you lose, but you can't say that you're one guy. Like it's 1 of 11. It's not just one guy. So really, really tough. Bryan, what's your thoughts on the defensive front or the rush defense?
You know what? I thought Dameon Pierce ran the ball very well against his team. I thought everything on the defense was pitiful in the first quarter and the fourth quarter. Actually, besides the third quarter, I would probably say, yeah, really, really bad the whole way. Played a little bit better in that quarter. Just not good enough. And you're right. Other players need to step up without Cam Hayward because Cam Hayward's not there much longer anyways when he does come back. You know, he's probably going to be year to year pretty soon if he's not there already. So there's a problem on the defense. It showed up today. Really, the reason they didn't run more wild and Pierce didn't run more wild on this team, because Singletary did well as well, Devin Singletary, is just for the fact that they had the passing game going. They had both going. It was kind of embarrassing all the way around on defense as well.
Let's get to some super chats here.
Yeah.
Dennis Paviak gives us $5. Said the standard unfortunately is no one is held accountable. Period. Okay, Rod Nizer gives us $5. In Canada's defense, he is the best preseason offensive coordinator in NFL history. Hey, you can't take that away from him, no matter what. Tyler W gives us $5. Said the Steelers can't rely on defense's biggest strength, the pass rush, when behind 2 scores, which exposed them. The defense didn't help itself early. They missed Cam. I will agree that they missed Cam. And then Afton gives us $2 and says, whatever happened to that man defense? They're not really running a lot of it. Every time you're seeing an issue, it's like, well, they're picking apart that zone. I want to ask you all a question before we get into specifics here. Can someone ask me or answer this? Everyone wants to rail on Matt Canada, right? Like everyone's like, fire Canada, fire. Hell, we made a freaking t-shirt that says it. But still, where's the angst towards Terrell Austin? Why does Terrell Austin never get the anger and vitriol from the fan base that Matt Canada does? Is it because they spend a ton of money, because they have a bunch of superstars like Minka Fitzpatrick and TJ Watt on that side of the ball? What is it? Because I see a lot of schematic issues with the defense, almost as many as offense. Dave, you want to talk? Go ahead.
Because most Steeler fans believe Mike Tomlin is really the one running the defense, whether that's true or not.
So then the angst towards, okay, go ahead, Bryan.
So that's part of their Tomlin blame. Yeah.
Got it.
If you listen to me at the beginning of the show, I said, hey, why aren't we talking about Austin either? Here's the thing. Austin's next. As soon as Matt Canada is out that door, this team needs a scapegoat, and they will find one. And that is going to be the fan base needs the scapegoat on this team, and that is going to be Terrell Austin next. Now, however, I'm just saying it's not the fact that we have to blame somebody all the time. There is just the fact that we're having problems with the defense. The defense should be better. They show glimpses of being great. They should be better here. And, a lot of people are saying, hey, it's still the defense never gets the chance. They're on the field way too much. Defense was on the field first in this game, and they let the Houston Texans set the tone. They set the tone in this game very early on. And I heard something, and it was a Matt Canada quote saying that, hey, we're not a team that plays from behind, so we have to start off quick. Well, here's the thing. They were behind from the very beginning in this game. So it's just not Matt Canada. It's Terrell Austin too. It's even Mike Tomlin. It is everybody. There is a problem here. This team is not playing well. Now, they could go out and beat the Ravens next week, and I will be praising whoever does a great job in that game. We'll call it like we see it. But this week, it's not good. There's not much to talk about.
Okay, I want to ask you all a question, but it's going to be getting away from the defense. It's going to be more of a general question. So does anyone have anything else to say about the defense before we move on? Dave?
Not good enough. I mean, nothing today was good enough. It's just, they rely so much. I think it was Tyler W. that said they rely so much on the pass rush. I mean, even look at what was going on at the beginning of the second half when the Steelers, the 3-and-out, the intentional grounding, the pass rush was getting there and at least hurrying Stroud. There were a number of times where, now granted, it was after they were running. Then he drops back to pass, has a long time, and then can find the open receiver. If the pass rush isn't wreaking complete havoc, what is the identity of this defense? That's really pretty much all they have.
Bryan, any final thoughts on the defense?
Frustration.
Okay. It seems like the word of the day for Steelers fan base, looking at the live chat, what we're saying here is all about accountability, right? Holding people accountable. Now, Dave has said this, and I've said it before on my podcast as well. It's not like Mike Tomlin's going to stand up there and make a public statement about how they're going about this. But let me ask you this question. in your opinion, if you had your way, what does accountability look like for these Steelers heading into week 5? Bryan, I'll let you go first.
Well, I was hoping Dave would go first. I could just agree with everything he said. No, seriously, accountability means going away from the status quo and saying, hey, this is the way that we always do it here in Pittsburgh, and start doing it different. When you've got a problem, you address the problem. And the problem right now, the main problem, you go after the main problem first, and you can't fire the owner. Pittsburgh Pirate fans know you can't fire an owner, but if you're going to go after the problem, the first problem is Matt Canada. And I don't care that you don't have anyone else to call plays. Why keep somebody around just because he's under contract and he's there? You figure it out on the fly. If you are the first-class organization that you're supposed to be, you cut out the problem, you clean it up, and you find a way to make it work somewhere else. Other people know how to call plays. Are they going to use the same playbook? Yeah, but you can still do some things. You can go ahead and change things around. But accountability is going to be hard this week because you have some big names holding on to their knees right now. And you've got another guy with a concussion, but you have 3 possible knee injuries too. So you're going to be piecing together a whole lot more when you're getting ready for the Baltimore Ravens. And it's going to be hard to keep the guys accountable when you have a lot of people. It's going to be hard to make a huge change, even though Mike Tomlin said there's going to be changes. But what kind of changes can you make when you're going to piecemeal a team together next week?
Okay. Dave, what about you? What does accountability look like?
Accountability is if you know there's a problem, then you have to take care of it. And that's why, and I keep saying we don't know for sure, but we get these little glimpses of everything here and there, and we read into them and we read into them. And is Matt Canada the problem that the fan base thinks that he is? I'm starting to believe he is, but I can't say 100% for sure because we don't see. This isn't a Hard Knocks. We don't get to see what's going on behind closed doors, and even in Hard Knocks, you don't even get to see everything. So, but if you know that's a problem, and if the players know it's a problem, and everyone else knows it's a problem, and nothing is done to fix the problem, it is completely demoralizing. It is completely demoralizing when you know that there's a problem, yet nothing will be done to fix it. So the accountability is whoever it is, let the team fix the problems. Identify it, fix it, and you got to be able, and sometimes that's all you need to move on. You just need that spark. Or maybe it's the mojo, maybe that's what's going on, but come on.
Yeah, it's definitely not good. I agree with what both of you all said. Let's get to some super chats here. Andrew Palladino gives us $2. Steelers.
Comeback player of the year.
Comeback. There you go. Comeback player of the year. One Bradley Wing. Boy, that's a low bar. Okay. Let's go to Monster. Gives another $4.99. Said, are the run stop issues scheme, personnel, or execution, or all of the above? The last 20 games have been What do y'all think about that? Dave, go ahead.
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm going with all
the above. Yeah, absolutely. Bryan, you agree?
I cannot disagree now.
All right. So we've done our due diligence here. We need to do some final thoughts before we call it a show. So Dave, I'll let you go first. What are your final thoughts after this game? Okay.
This day sucked. We can admit to that. This day sucked. And to me, it even went beyond the Steelers game. So it was bad. I know it's bad. We all know it's bad. We're all frustrated. So I'm going to take a step away from that for just a moment for some closing thoughts. And my closing thoughts go all the way back to an experience I had on July 31st of 1992. It was the very last day. I went on, it was a summertime school trip. I went on a bus trip. And it was my very last time that I have ever seen the Pittsburgh Pirates play a baseball game. And it was in Three River Stadium. And I was there for the major league debut of one Tim Wakefield, who unfortunately just announced today by the Red Sox passed away to cancer at age, I believe it was 57. So to me, I was already really pissed off when this game started. And remember, he came up with the Pirates. I know not everyone on here, Steelers fans or Pirates fans, but it's just one of those things. And yeah, it was a terrible day, terrible thing with Steelers Nation. But I'm just going to say this, the Steelers' performance sucked today, but cancer sucks even worse.
Absolutely. Let's go to Bryan. Final thoughts.
Dave, thank you for saying that. I knew exactly where you were going as soon as when you said that, because I've heard that story before, and that warms my heart when you say it. Tim Wakefield was a great Pittsburgh athlete from when he was there. And if we get back to this game, it still goes back to Dave's comments. And so all of us here are very frustrated right now. That frustration was elation last week. It changes. It changes week to week. We are week to week fans. If you're frustrated, we are frustrated too. You have every right to be frustrated. We are. We also have a responsibility here to look for the bright side to everything. And we are going to continue to look for bright sides with this team. And it is not our job to go ahead and say everybody should be fired. This is horrible. No, we said it tonight. A lot of people are disgusted with the fact that we do not go after Mike Tomlin every single week. And you know what? We're not going to. When it's time to go after him, when it's time to be frustrated, we will. But we cannot do these shows without you. And we appreciate having you each and every week. So don't apologize for your opinions. We're not going to apologize for our opinions. But one thing, we're going to do this together. So thank you for being here.
Go ahead, Dave.
Sorry. I know I edited it because I wanted to go on that other note. We've got to give you some positivity for Jeff to roll in there. Jeff, looking on the bright side, the Steelers scored the second most points of any AFC North team this week.
It was a rough day at the office for the AFC North for sure. Browns scored 3, Bengals I think 6, right?
3, I think it was
3. Yeah, and then obviously the Ravens beat the Browns, scoring over 20. It was a rough day at the office for the entire division. Tyler W gives us $2. His note: Manko does not look right. He had a bad day. He wasn't the only one. We'll put it that way. Yeah. My final thoughts are this. These are one of the games, just like after week 1, that sometimes you just have to throw it away and move on. There's still a lot of games left, like Bryan alluded to. We're going to be with you every step of the way. If you're wondering, like, I wonder if all the podcasts are still going to be there, the answer is always yes. It is always yes. So make sure you check out Steel Curtain, SteelCurtainNetwork.com, as well as wherever you get your podcasts. You can check out shows that are only on our audio side, like my Let's Ride podcast, Bryan's Bad Language, Dave's Stat Geek podcast. Make sure you check us out just by searching Steelers. You'll find the Steel Curtain Network logo, and you'll get so much more than just what you see here on Facebook, YouTube, or on Twitter. All right, gentlemen, that's a wrap. Steelers lose. It sucked. We'll see you next week after the Ravens game for another postgame show. Take it easy.
Curtain Network. Get it.
Everybody else gets a little tight.